I just had the opportunity to discuss with Congressman Dan Meuser, representing our 9th Congressional District, key issues identified by the members of the Northeast Pennsylvania Manufacturers and Employers Association. At this time, I'd like to thank the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association for being our event sponsor and PPL for being our goal sponsor. Enjoy the interview. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Congressman Meuser, several key concerns from our member companies in Northeast PA comes as no surprise to you. Representing our 9th Congressional District and serving on the House Financial Services and Small Business Committees, you are well aware of the actions needed with the poor economy, high inflation rates, and the critical border crisis and world peace. So if I may, can I begin?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Sure. Fossil fuels development is a driving force of the Northeast PA economy. It is always under threat of being regulated. What plans and/or policies are being proposed to ensure regions like ours are being represented?
Yeah, well, very, very important question for our region, for my district, for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, our country, and in fact, the world. You know, American energy, all types, both all the above, as they say, and all the below, are the most responsible standards, have the most responsible standards on for retraction of them and in their drilling practices. So frankly, the more American energy there is, the cleaner the world would be, because Venezuela, the Middle East, China, India, the list goes on, Asia, Russia, they simply don't have the pollutant standards that we have in the United States. Yet, frankly, the Biden administration has taken an all-out assault on domestic energy, on coal, which our region is well known for. Anthracite coal is primarily used for the manufacturing of steel, which is obviously very important. Natural gas is half the carbon emissions of other fossil fuels. We have the Marcellus Shale, the second largest, arguably, reserve for natural gas in the world. And our oil in the United States, once again, has the lowest levels of carbon emissions, other pollutants during the drilling process. Yet again, the Biden administration, and far too many in the U.S. House and the Senate, and many states have put serious restrictions. The Biden administration has put restrictions on offshore drilling, on pipelines, on Alaska. I could get into the stories there that are just senseless, frankly, on federal lands, taxes. The Biden administration removed a tax known as the intangible drilling cost that has been in existence forever. Since Rockefeller first drilled in Pennsylvania, in Titusville, and in Oil City. So they're not helping. There are these ESG standards that exist from banks. The gas and oil and coal companies are having difficult time getting credit lines from banks because of the ESG standards and all. So we in Congress, Republican majority, we put forth a bill known as H.R. 1, which would be very sensible, very responsible initiatives that would permit much more of a capacity increase and much more drilling, frankly, for American energy. It had a high responsibility level and would increase our output by millions of barrels a day, far making up for any losses. And Darlene would, according to the numbers that I have, lower our gasoline prices well over $1, maybe $1.20, and the capacity would increase from there. And again, as far as natural gas goes, we're fortunate in Pennsylvania that our natural gas prices are pretty cost effective. But New England, for instance, because they refuse to build pipelines, pays 3, 4, 5 times more than we do. And then you have the international front, because energy policy, being energy independent, if not energy dominant, is a national security issue. So all these geopolitical events that spike our home heating oil prices and our gasoline prices would not exist just as they didn't in the previous administration when these geopolitical events take place. So there's a lot of work to be done. Unfortunately, and you know what? We want the renewables. Let's bring them on. But the idea of giving $8,000 to $10,000 tax credits for $60,000 EV vehicles when our electrical capacity cannot even sustain it is short-sighted, and it's ideology over reality. And we need to be realists to take energy policy seriously. And then there's, simply the other tax burdens that all businesses deal with that that are sunsetting under the Biden administration that will hurt American energy and favor foreign energy. So we have our work to do on our energy policy.
And isn't the administration proposing new power plant regulations as we speak? Always it seems.
I have power plants in my district, or excuse me, in my office all the time, just discussing some of these issues and the type of regulations. And unfortunately, Pennsylvania is in what's called RGGI. So from a state regulatory standpoint, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, the only energy producing state to be in such a organization or live under such standards. So basically, the governors, Tom Wolf brought us in, and Governor Shapiro has kept it. And I've talked to him several times about removing us from it. He's kept us in the standards of Connecticut and New Jersey that are not energy producing, which make no sense. And Pennsylvania should have its own standard. We should have a high level of responsible drilling and access to our Commonwealth's natural resources.
Absolutely. And you talked about taxes. Going on to the financial aspect, which absolutely is your area of expertise. Tax cuts are set to expire in 2025. Looking ahead, what is being looked at to lessen the blow, especially at financial policy, to ensure financial and economic growth? When 2025 draws to a close, so will many of the sweeping Trump-era GOP tax breaks established through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. So what financial policy is being proposed to ensure financial and economic growth?
Well, of course, our small businesses and large businesses have been dealing with many different economic headwinds. Inflation, of course, which was really derived from the excessive spending, as well as energy prices and some quantitative easing excesses from the Fed, some of which are being corrected, and inflation's finally, we hope, getting near the 2% target. So they deal with that. Of course, the response to inflation is higher interest rates, which is really crushing small business. Their lines of credit are going through the roof. They're costing a line of credit. Of course, buying cars, buying homes, the interest rates are leading to a housing crisis. People buying homes are paying literally $1,000 more a month now than they were or would have been just 3, 4, 5 years ago. So there's a real crunch coming on to the consumer and to businesses. So it would be the worst time to increase taxes on small business and large business. Yet that's exactly, Darlene, what the Biden administration is proposing. They are right now basically allowing the R&D tax credit to expire, the bonus depreciation, which has a tremendous impact on capital investment, the small business tax cut, which did so much for small businesses throughout our district. And you know what? The problem is this. When they do this, they think that they might be saving money because taxes go up, and that's not the case. When businesses slow their profitability and slow their sales, of course, and slow their overall economic growth, they create less tax revenues if their profitability gets squeezed. And you want to know what? That's just not a theory. The small business, the pass-through tax revenue for the federal government is down $350 billion just in the last 2 years. That's a huge number, huge number. So we're already seeing a major downturn, and that's before all of these tax credits or taxes get increased and expire and sunset. So we are I'm working with regularly. I'm on the Financial Services Committee. I work with my committee, all members, as well as Ways and Means. I'm doing everything we can to kick these or to allow the Trump tax cuts to continue. We're negotiating. Frankly, that they're asking for a lot in return, but one way or another, we have to look after. We can't remove this from our small businesses. You know, the way we're going to, you know that we have a national debt
Yes.
of $33 trillion. Our deficit this year is 1.5 trillion, and that's just because of the monies that the Biden administration spent before we became majority are now largely going out. So we have real serious financial situations. Our debt to GDP ratio is 118%. Solvent countries are at 60%. So we really have some real financial issues. We can't cut our way out of it. We can't tax our way out of it. We need to grow our way out of it. We need some reductions because there's been some huge excesses, but we also need to grow our way out of it. You know, Winston Churchill said, trying to tax your way into prosperity is like standing in a bucket and standing in the bucket and lifting the handle and thinking that's going to pick you up. It simply doesn't work.
Well, I believe we're standing on the future wealth of this country.
Well,
and that's
right.
Unleashing the energy, unleashing it. And that's where our future wealth, we wouldn't be in debt.
You're not going to get any argument from me. I couldn't
know.
agree more. It's under our feet, literally, in Pennsylvania.
It is.
And do you know that there's more oil in ANWR, many argue, than in the rest of the United States? And do you know how much territory ANWR is in Alaska? If you took a stamp and put it on a football field, a regular postage stamp, that's how much area would be drilled upon.
Oh,
and
wow.
All of the residents of ANWR are pleading for it. They want it. Washington is keeping it from being maximized.
We have to get this message out, Congressman. We just have to get this message out. There has to be pressure from the constituency.
You're right. I mean, look, and manufacturing is everything, right? I mean, Pennsylvania, we're known for it. We're known for ag. We're known for a number of things. Manufacturing has the largest multiplier effect, that and actually housing development.
Yes.
And the more manufacturing, like all the great distributors, we like them in our area, the more we can encourage them to not just import and distribute, but to actually do assembly, to provide services, and yes, to create within Pennsylvania. And it can happen. There's some good technological developments occurring in the Southeast, primarily not because of our tax position or the competitiveness, but it is happening because of our energy costs and natural gas, and certainly the great position geographically Pennsylvania is in as compared to Florida or Texas.
Correct. Let me ask about the border control security, which I know that you're firsthand aware of. On November 28th, the Biden administration said they are going to resume the border wall construction, citing the strain. Senate Republicans have demanded a crackdown on asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border as a condition for backing President Biden's request for emergency funding for Ukraine, part of the $106 billion proposal that also includes aid to Israel and Taiwan, as well as money to bolster the immigration system. What perspective do you have in controlling and securing the border?
Well, I just came from a meeting with Speaker Johnson on it, and where we are in negotiations on something they call the supplemental bill for as a trade-off for the Democrats for more additional funding for the Ukraine and Israel, which we're for, but as a trade-off, we're stating that we must also not just secure Israel's border and the Ukraine's border, which we will attempt to do, but we want to secure our border. And so negotiations are being worked on. Look, our border is an unmitigated disaster. I could tell you stories, and I have been there several times. CBP, the human trafficking, the drugs, the mess, the horror of the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, we had 12,000 people come through on Sunday. We have 250,000 basically on a monthly basis. I mean, millions, 7 million, larger than most of our states. Coming through undocumented. We had more people get caught that were on the terrorist watch list this past year than in the last 6 years combined. And that's how many got caught. So, and we have over 1 million gotaways a year too. So, and you'd think somebody on the terrorist watch list would do everything they possibly could not to get caught. Right. So it's an unmitigated disaster. It needs to be closed. The idea that there's pushback coming from my Democrat colleagues is absolutely senseless. You know, they tend to talk about the idea of illegal immigration reform or comprehensive immigration reform. Okay, fine, be specific. They never can be. We had our bill, HR 2, which called for corrections and more stringent policies surrounding our asylum laws. We want to reinstitute Remain in Mexico, which existed under the Trump administration. Yes, we need a higher level of border fencing. It goes without saying. CBP will tell you all the time, you see right here where the wall is, where the fence is, we don't have to guard here. Over there where it doesn't exist, that's where we need to guard, and that's where they come through. So it's sort of just ridiculous that that's not understood, that can certainly be effective, along with other means. We need to set deterrents. Even Obama publicized very well, actually, sending people back. The border was not in good shape under Obama, but it was far better than it is today. Wow. Far better. I mean, 10 times better. So we need to be sending people back. We need to be serious about it. They need to know that these poor people are giving their life savings, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 to cartels, to coyotes, as they call them, to the mules. And they're being instructed on what to say in order to get asylum. We need huge corrections to take place, not to mention the amount of money being spent, which the American people, that for one reason doesn't come up that often, but it's about $350 billion a year. Wow. It's significant, and then some. So these are things that are very serious. And if they avoid this discussion and do not negotiate on with real teeth to the policies for the border, well, we're going to need a new president, clearly, in order to gain control of the border and, in fact, border security. But we'll see what happens here. Hopefully, we can get some portions of this bill through, this plan through, and we can at least minimize the disaster situation that exists. But everybody
didn't exist in the last administration, Congressman.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. And I spoke to President Trump directly about it at the time when it improved, because I went to the border at the beginning of his administration, and it was a virtual disaster. And then two years later, and it really had to do with the cooperation that the president gained with the Mexican government. You know, the Mexican government understood the problems that were being created, and they had their military guard the southern and northern border, and that had made a huge difference. And again, President Trump made that happen. You know, today, this is something most people don't realize. Mexico, many sections of Mexico have become a gangland. I mean, the cartels have just overrunning it. Many Mexican people, many that I meet with, ambassadors, foreign ministers, are beside themselves with the disasters that have occurred. So all of these, seeming policies that are to help people, when you do things in such a unaccounted for and irresponsible manner, it backfires, and that's what's happened, and then some, both to America and to Mexico. And I talked to some manufacturing companies and businesses in Central America. They say all of our good workers are leaving. They're all coming here. Our young people are leaving. We want you to close the border, secure the border. And, we're a very welcoming country, Darlene, right? I mean, we allow over 2 million people in a year through visas, work visas, more than that. So I have a saying, high fences, but wide gates. We need to know who's coming in.
Documentation.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Last, I'd like to talk about the Iran sanctions. On November 14th, the Financial Services Committee advanced 11 bipartisan pieces of legislation in the wake of the barbaric attack, one of which is H.R. 5945, Freezing Hamas Act, which would prohibit the Biden administration from further lifting of sanctions on Iran. It would have been a refreezing of $6 billion on Iran, the biggest supporters of Hamas. What role should Congress take, and is that happening?
Yes. Well, actually, the Freeze Hamas Act was my bill.
I know.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And we passed it out of our committee. A very similar bill by the chairman of Foreign Affairs, my good friend Mike McCall, is fixing this. We passed his bill on the House floor. So we certainly, which would restrict the $6 billion. It just wouldn't be a pause. It would be withheld from Iran until we lifted it. So Iran is a state of terrorism. It's a terrorist state.
Yes.
It is the center of funding for Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, the list goes on. Yes. They are a sincere enemy to the United States and to Saudi Arabia, to any country that is trying to live in a normal society. They want to overrun Israel, and they are through proxy and very directly too funding Hamas, Hezbollah. So the idea that the Biden administration, and now I keep going back to the Biden administration.
No, but it's
right, is the truth, has this very unusual affinity. It's inexplicable for Iran, for trying to create new diplomacy with them. Really makes no sense. I think they're finally getting it with this complete massacre, as you said, which occurred with Hamas in their attack and slaughter of over 1,200 innocent Israelis. Hamas is an incredible danger, and because of that, as we see, Israel is looking to exterminate them, frankly, for lack of a better word. And of course, all needs to be done in order to not have civilian casualties. And I appreciate that. I get that. That's the last thing we want is innocent young people or any persons. But Hamas is in control of that country, and they need to be dealt with, because Israel simply can't live under a threat like that. I mean, imagine Hamas were based in Canada or Mexico. Think about how we would be handling that. It would be pretty powerful actions taken. So all that being said, the Biden administration, when Biden came in, he lifted the oil sanctions on Iran. Didn't make any sense. Iran was down to, my understanding is down to $4 billion in cash on hand, if you will.
That
Now
changed.
now it's up to 60.
Yeah.
And they're using it for a lot of no good. And it's not just the United States and Israel that feels this way. Saudi Arabia, all the countries that are trying to develop, Qatar, Bahrain, a lot of these countries we deal with. I meet their ambassadors. They are interested, Abu Dhabi, they're interested in being a part of the world market and create strong economies and have their people live decent, wonderful lives, not to live with the threat of rocket fire. And that's all Israel's asking for. And the fact of the matter is, and you see these protests from largely Palestinian groups, but some of them certainly appear pro-Hamas. They just don't. They're just ignorant to the fact that Hamas is the enemy to Palestinians. They're the enemy to all, the United States and Israel. And the fact is this: if the terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran laid down their weapons, there would be peace in the Middle East. If Israel laid down their weapons, Israel would be overrun. And that's the fact here. That's what we have to deal with. And again, I go back to President Trump. When ISIS was acting in the manner that Hamas has taken over for now, they were wiped out.
Yeah,
They were wiped out. And then there were years of peace in the Middle East. That's kind of harsh, but if people are going to live or act in such inhumane ways, they just have to be dealt with force.
I was just going to say they have to be dealt with. We need world peace, and that's certainly not happening today. Well, I thank you. Is there anything that you wish to add? Because I can't thank you enough. You are very close to all of the issues, and my members and all of the constituents in the 9th Congressional District. You know, with your business background and your financial background, I'm so happy that you're representing Pennsylvania, and I commend you for the work that you're doing. I thank you so much for taking the time.
So welcome, Darlene. You're great. Yes, I'm a strong advocate, of course, for small business and certainly our district and our great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's an honor to serve, and it's certainly a pleasure and an honor to speak with you today. I appreciate it. Sorry I missed your last event. I'll make the next one. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.